What is up, guys? In today's video I want to go over why I think Python is one of the easiest languages out there that you can learn, and it really doesn't take that much time to learn it. So I'm just going to lay down my thoughts on why I think Python is the easiest language you can learn if you want to learn programming. So the first reason is that Python was actually created with the idea that it should be readable as possible. They removed semicolons, they removed curly brackets, and they just made the language as clean as possible. If you actually look at the Python language, you'll notice that there's a lot of spaces, and that's usually how you define a block or how you define a new sequence of code. And this method of using spaces instead of extra characters makes the code so much cleaner when you look at it. Although there is a lot of preference that goes around that the curly brackets does make it easier to spot the blocks, but this is a matter of preference, and my preference is to have the tab and the space because it just looks so much nicer if you need to type much less to achieve much more. The second reason is that Python is a very forgiving language. You can write very simple code and it's going to be extremely powerful. If you were to do this in C or Java, you're going to have to do some more research on data types and type conversion and even pointers. There's so much more information about coding that you need to understand to do this in other languages. But Python comes right out of the box. You don't really need to worry about this most of the time because it does it automatically for you. And that's another reason why it's so simple to use Python. The third reason is that Python is more than 30 years old, which means there's a lot of documentation out there. And if you want to learn anything about Python, it has already been written. So you don't have to worry about searching and searching because everything you want to learn is already on the internet, it's already on YouTube, and it's everywhere. Python has one of the biggest communities next to Java and JavaScript, so it's definitely worth checking out because there are so many resources. And a fourth reason that Python is considered to be one of the easiest languages to learn is due to the packages and the libraries that you can download. If you want to automate your computer or you want to create some AI, there are plenty of packages filled with code that have already been created, so all you have to do is plug in some values and the code will run itself. You can build anything you want, only creating maybe 4 or 5 lines of code, and it's really that simple to use Python. And usually when you hear the word Python, you always associate it with libraries and packages because Python as a standalone language is quite hard to use, but since there are so many libraries and packages that are super popular and super useful, we tend to all make the best of Python. But of course there are some close competitors. I would have to say JavaScript is incredibly close to Python. I personally think Python was a bit easier, but JavaScript does have some other features that can actually make it easier to program than Python. But at the end of the day, I would say it's definitely a preference between JavaScript and Python. These are both dynamically typed and very easy to use. They are very forgiving if you make an error, and they both really abstract the programmer from the bytecode. So they make it very simple, they make it human readable, more or less. I would say Python is more human readable than JavaScript, but they are both very easy to read. But at the end of the day, I learned Python in about 2 to 3 days. The only part that gets complex is learning the algorithms for machine learning, and the automation techniques and everything associated with AI becomes quite more heavy than Python itself. But learning Python as a standalone language is probably one of the easiest ones you can go for. But of course, I'm very curious to hear what you guys have to say about that. Maybe you think JavaScript's easier, maybe you think Java is easier. Feel more than free to leave whatever you think about this video in the comment section down below. I'll be more than happy to hear your side of it. And as always, guys, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.